yourself, telling me a little bit about yourself?
So yeah, my name is Justin Tyner, JT&T as on Instagram.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm an artist, stained glass artist in Philadelphia. I do street art, visual art, psychedelic art, and delved into film and photography a little bit.
Oh, nice.
So I'm in a band, play music.
Wow. Okay, so art's kind of at every point of your life in different ways.
Main mode of expression.
Yeah.
Right?
Very nice. And, you know, as your pieces in the art market are stained glass pieces, can you talk a little bit about how you got into making stained glass pieces?
Yeah, so I went to visual art school in Philadelphia, the Art Institute of Philadelphia, as a graphic designer, and graduated and came out of that searching for a way to get an art job. And I was a graphic designer for the Electric Factory for a minute, and that wasn't, concert tickets weren't paying the bills, so I actually found a job at a studio, a stained glass studio in Germantown, and that was in 2001, and I've been there ever since. So that's how I broke into the stained glass field, and never left.
Okay,
Yeah.
Amazing. And in terms of kind of where you source your materials, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so this studio I work at is a traditional stained glass studio. So they restore church windows, and they do new design and stuff, but my materials come from the restoration process of broken glass that is unusable in fixing these old 100-year-old windows. So I try to collect as much of that useful glass as I can for my own personal artistic, body there.
Okay, nice.
And also so that's like my stained glass, my historical stained glass aspect of my work. And then I also do street art, which I also use those old church pieces, but I incorporate broken glass from glass on the street, beer bottles or glass bottles I find in various locations. And I just can see the potential a piece of broken glass on the street has in my work. And so I incorporate it all.
Nice. And do the sources of where your glass come from kind of shape what the final product is going to be at the end of the day, your inspiration for the piece at all?
Location, I've never really thought of it that way. I do look for sort of abandoned places, like maybe like riverbanks. There's a spot called Dead Horse Bay in Jamaica Bay in New York that has washed up. It's like a landfill that washes up the landfill and exposes all this broken glass and debris and detritus. And I use that, but in a way, now that I'm thinking of it, it's like recycling glass and using it again for a new purpose. And it's almost like reducing some sort of reduce, reuse, recycle. So yeah, I guess it works out that way.
Yeah. Nice. And in terms of your pieces that are in our art market, can you talk a little bit about those pieces specifically and how you decided those are the ones you wanted to showcase for the art market?
Yeah, sure. So these are more three-dimensional sculptures, which I've been exploring a little bit more. I suffered an Achilles tendon injury a few years ago. Two, actually. I had 2 surgeries to fix my Achilles. And so I was out of commission, had no motivation. I was really trying to heal my body. And at some point, I got the urge to start making art again. And so the first piece I made was that pyramid, and I named it Mayday as a form of, I'm down in the dumps a little bit and I need a little bit of help, a Mayday call. And so that was my first piece of art I made after my surgeries, and I piggybacked off of that success of that and started to explore this sculptural aspect. And it's all using the church glass. Most of that is all church glass. And it's not flat. A traditional stained glass panel is flat, and these are three-dimensional. And I'm incorporating mirror and crystals. So that kind of that work is like part of my like psychedelic experience of like visually to use like psychedelic visuals in that way. So that's where this new work is coming from.
Yeah, I really like the piece where their eyeballs like kind of woven into it, and then the one with the hands on it.
So it's traditional like imagery, but it's just in a different way that you would see stained glass. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And in terms of working with stained glass, do you feel like it relates to your training in graphic design in any way, or do you still work on graphic design?
I do work here and there. I mostly do like poster design, which I'm mostly drawn to that sort of way. But visually, like visual art to me is just color, design, style. So of course I'm using those things that I've long since been taught back in art school. Now, I mean, they never really leave you as an artist, you know? So to see something and say, I'm gonna incorporate it here with this color, this style, yeah, it all goes together.
Nice. Blog and how you got involved in the art market?
Sure, I mean, Artblog's always read Artblog. I've written like notes to Libby and Roberta, inviting them to my shows that I had. You know, so I always try to include, I don't know, important people in Philly to come see my work. Yeah. And that's how I kind of just stayed in that web of community in Artblog.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you kind of built that relationship, and then when the art market came to be, that's how you were involved.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very cool. Nice.
What was the inspiration for your current pieces that you've got out there?
Well, they really came from the. So I also build kaleidoscopes too, like as part of my practice. Homemade mirror kaleidoscopes, and I was trying to, like, when you look inside of a kaleidoscope, it doesn't really last too long, and like you look at it and you're, oh, that's cool, and then you put it down and then you move on. And I was trying to explore what you see visually for that few seconds looking into a kaleidoscope. If you can expand that, so you couldn't get away from it. So that's kind of where those pieces came from. They're almost like inside-out kaleidoscopes that you don't have to look inside of it, but visually you can see them if you like focus on it in some way. And again, like the injury I had, it put me down. It was difficult, and to come back and find your creativity again, and all those pieces came from finding my creativity again, and then really going for this certain style of sculpture, out of the norm of contemporary stained glass or traditional stained glass. I feel like they stand out a little bit better. Yeah.
What does the kaleidoscope effect say for you? What are you trying to say with that?
I feel like that is part of my exploration into like psychedelic culture, visual art. I'm more drawn to that. I've been a proponent of, you know, psychedelic use. And so I'm trying to express a side of myself that can, you know, come across in my artwork.
You know, stained glass in my mind is usually kind of in religious buildings like the church and stuff like that. So can you kind of talk about how you're kind of I don't know if you think about it as reclaiming the stained glass or making it more of a public art form, but if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I feel like that also ties into like this like psychedelic tie-in, I guess, where the original makers of stained glass were using it as a church, so the light can shine in on it and make you feel something inside that church.
Yeah.
So if you take that philosophy and fast forward hundreds of years till today, no one goes to church. Very few people go to church. I'm not knocking that or anything. But that feeling that you have inside of a church when you're humbled and you can see the light shining through, if you can take that feeling and bring it out into the public space, into a street art situation or a gallery, I want that feeling to come across so you have that moment of contemplation where you're looking at stained glass. Oh, this isn't normal for me. It's not, you don't see it inside of a church, you see it walking down the streets of Philly. And you're like, what is that there? Like, that's kind of what I'm trying to do for that person that's walking by in that public, space, and give them that moment of, what is this? What am I looking at? Why do I feel this way when I'm looking at this color and glass and light? That's a big part of us. I mean, stained glass, the main ingredient of it is light. Yeah. So that, to me, is like pretty profound and powerful.
Your work you don't see as a personal church.
Well, my work, I mean, I love when I can put it out in the public space, but I'm making my work for me.
Yeah.
And that's my mode of expression. Creative expression, if you want to go that far, but it's just how I express myself. And, I do play music as well. I'm a drummer, and so that's part of it. So it's a balance of like, how do I want to express myself through visual art or through music or go on hikes and go fishing? Like, I'm into all of that,
Great. I think that's really great. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.